Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for joining and good morning. Welcome to the Ultima monthly licensing webinar, specifically Microsoft licensing webinar. And today we'll be looking at I will be going through the rise of the Microsoft CSP agreement, what we kind of know today, some of the imminent changes, and what the future has in store, what the future up ahead is. As always, this webinar will be recorded and the slides will be made available. I know several people take the recording and listen to that, but please do contact me if there are any questions afterwards or after the event. I will be trying to log the questions as we go, and I'll look to cover them off at the end. But you've got my contact details there, and it'd be really great to hear from you if you do have any questions, or similarly, actually, if you have any requests, particularly any subjects you want to hear about the following month, or any specific questions. Like I always say, there's going to be some elements that are going to be more relevant to your organization, to your own priorities than others. And similarly, we have to go at quite a relatively high level. So please contact myself, your licensing specialist, or your Ultima account manager to really kind of explore and learn more about your own unique challenges and situation, and we can kind of help guide you through that. It's a constantly changing environment, is Microsoft licensing. I've been doing this now with Ultima for coming up to 13 years, and prior to that, I worked for Microsoft in the area, so I've got good knowledge, and I speak to a lot of customers, speak a lot to Microsoft, speak a lot internally, just in regards to licensing scenarios and products, and what the industry is doing. So what I also want to cover on the webinar today is some of those trends for 2024 as well, and I'll be covering those. A lot of the information is on the slide. Some of the information is more advisory, and some of it is confirmed. And I want to also talk about a little bit about some of the things that I'm kind of going to be expecting to see over the next 12 months as well. So I will kind of start us off by providing that kind of brief history in regards to Microsoft's agreements, where we're kind of coming from and the concept behind it, and really what is that Microsoft CSP agreement today, what advantages are customers getting from the CSP agreement today, or what things should you be thinking about as an organization, where to take advantage of this. So I'll make some recommendations in regards to some of the actions which other guys are doing, and some success stories with different clients that we've worked with, and what they're looking to do today and also in the coming months. There's a very significant action coming up in March, February and March of 2024, which I'll cover off. And then I think I really want to talk about the future of CSP. There have been a lot of changes, certainly over the last number of years, but actually coming in the next 12 months, we're kind of predicting some pretty significant changes as well. And just generally within the licensing industry, some things that are potentially unexpected that I'll run through as well in regards to perpetual licensing, in regards to online subscriptions. And finally, there's been a lot of talk and activity regarding Copilot, so I don't think I could get away with a Microsoft licensing webinar without covering off some of those Copilot updates. There's significant Copilot updates that we've had since the announcement last Monday. Obviously not this week, the previous week, in regards to that being available. So look, I will also cover off Copilot updates at the end of this call, because that is something that's taking up obviously 70 to 80% of my conversations at the moment, which is pretty fantastic. So, but I will keep my powder dry on that one in regards to those updates. We'll cover them off at the end. And like I say, this webinar is being recorded, so please do let me know your questions as they pop up, or crucially things that you'd potentially like to hear about next month as well. Like I said, though, I wanted to really start off with a brief overview of Microsoft's licensing environment as a whole. And this is a slide or a diagram you may or may not recognize. I certainly used to run through this previously in the past, but on the left-hand side in the grayed out box, you can effectively see all the different types of, and I said today's experience, that's not actually true. This diagram, we're kind of looking at the history. So this was something Microsoft produced circa kind of 2018, 2019, where they were talking about today's experience of purchasing Microsoft licenses, Microsoft products. You got a variety of different agreements, the enterprise agreement, the Select Plus, and really the idea that the concept behind the CSP agreement is that actually it's going to consolidate it all down, especially with the NCE, the new commerce experience. The idea is removing all of these various different programs and ways to purchase licenses, to consolidate it down to really give you, the customer, a much more simplified choice and a much more clearly identifiable value between those choices as well. Effectively, Microsoft called that the breadth motion, the enterprise motion, and the self-service motion on on the right-hand side, all kind of underpinning by the same Microsoft customer agreement. And that's where we are today. That breadth motion, that dark blue box on the right-hand side is CSP. The enterprise motion, the lighter blue in the middle, is the enterprise agreement, the enterprise subscription agreement. Maybe you've got a direct Azure agreement, an SCE agreement, that's the enterprise motion. And the purple box, the self-serve, being, well, you can buy this stuff on credit card. You can do it yourself via the website directly. But the idea is that as a customer, you're analyzing all of those choices. You're working with the partner who's providing you the best advice on which one of those three motions is going to be correct for yourself. I think even then, looking at CSP, people think it's great. It was actually launched back in 2014 with CSP, so it's been around for 10 years now. There've been significant updates. Certainly it's no lie to say that when the CSP was first launched, it was designed to be a monthly flexible agreement for those small organizations, kind of under 250 organizations. That was what was initially planned when it was kind of launched in 2014. But it's just grown and grown, mainly through customers adopting it, mainly through partners adding on extra value, where we've now seen some mass expansion. It was launched in 2014. When we got to 2015, just like 1 year later, it suddenly went direct with partners being able to provide, being offered to provide their own portal, their own platform, their own support. Partner Center was introduced in 2016, 2017, more mass expansion. The new commerce experience did arrive in 2019. Dynamics 365 arrived, along with all other kind of licensing suites and products, came just before 2020 as well. In 2020, Microsoft announced actually we're going to start ending those other agreements like Select Plus and Open Value, really kind of enforcing those three options on the right. And now as we come up to 2024, again, we're going to see a complete ending of all of the legacy options and really only being enterprise agreement or the new commerce experience with CSP, effectively ending all of these other options for you. So what is CSP? For those who don't know, I think we need to be able to compare effectively what those two options, the breadth motion, which is CSP, or the enterprise motion, which is EA. With a CSP agreement, you don't have to commit to any minimum number of users. You can just buy one license if you want to. There are kind of 1 year or 3 year options for some licenses, and I'll come on to that a little bit more. But when you're looking at the enterprise agreement, that's where you need to kind of make a minimum commitment of 500 users, and that's kind of across a 3 year term. And look, there's benefits of doing that, but we're talking about the CSP today, with the CSP being that no minimum commitment. And you can kind of look to kind of engage in like a 1 year or potentially a 3 year model. When it comes to invoicing, you can choose to pay for those licenses up front. You can pay monthly. All of the licenses that you do are going to be pro-rata. So if you're introducing a license mid-month, that's going to be pro-rated, and you're going to be getting a kind of an itemized invoice moving forwards, to really be able to highlight when those additions have been made. With the enterprise agreement, for those of you who don't know, that's where you're effectively having to pay for that full year upfront. Yes, you can increase your users at any time. When we're looking at the support model, effectively with CSP, the support is provided by your partner, by your CSP partner, in this case Ultima, and we have, we're a direct partner, so that's our own Ultima employees based in the UK who, sit across the room actually. And again, they're doing that break fix support. We've got that Microsoft Unified Support contract if there are any harder technical issues. And that's kind of that's not even talking about the licensing support, the licensing advice, the Ultima account team that you would have access to as well. And especially when it comes to support, providing those really high-end SLAs. Obviously, on the enterprise agreement side, you do still get support, don't get me wrong, but that is provided by Microsoft. So if something goes wrong, you're kind of calling up Microsoft, and both of those are kind of 24/7. Product availability is probably one of the biggest differentiators and something we will be talking about when we look at the future of CSP. Not all products are available on the CSP as we look at it today. Many are, and there has been a mass expansion, but not everyone is, whereas they are all available on the enterprise agreement, unless you're kind of looking at those business plans where you can't get over 300 users. With the EA being 500 user minimum, you cannot buy those business plans on an EA, and you can't buy them on CSP. Discounting is something, again, that is something that I'm going to be covering. Pricing, discounting the commercials is a critical point of all agreements, and that's something I'll be talking about throughout this webinar. But the concept being that, and again, I really will talk about this a lot more, but Microsoft used to really strongly incentivize Microsoft enterprise agreements, and they would say, oh, well, it's 500 user minimum. Oh, you've only got 350 users, fine. Let's give you a concession. Let's open that up for you. And maybe you're at 2,000 users and you're looking to buy E5, then yes, you would get discounting. There would be commercial discounts available. Microsoft have kind of not entirely stopped those on the enterprise agreement, but they are vastly reduced. They've made a lot of the changes more programmatic and having to kind of hit 2.5 or 2,400 users before you're getting some of those discounts now on the enterprise agreement side. On the CSP side, it's not really like the partner gets a cost price and we add on a margin. So it's not like we have huge discounts. It's just you kind of negotiate that price with your CSP partner. More and more, we are seeing some incentives coming into CSP. So, for way of an example, if you've currently got the product Office 365 E3, and then you're looking at a new product which is going to be Microsoft 365 E3, there is a CSP incentive, kind of a do more with less type of incentive. Hey, you want to buy this new increased license? Here's an additional 10% discount. So there's point in time discounts, but generally it's kind of up to the partner, up to the provider, if they want to give you a strong price point on the CSP agreement. Everything I'm talking about today is about value add and how do you get the most from your investment, and what Ultima are certainly doing in regards to all of that: customer success, optimization, support, road mapping, added value. But let's never forget, this is fulfillment. Buying a license, it needs to be a really competitive price. So we are competitive as well. But as opposed to a race to the bottom, we find the best value is a mix of the both, where yes, you've got to have a competitive price, but you need to be able to ally that support over the top of that as well. The advantages of CSP are similarly what I've said, or what we've kind of seen, is the fact that there's short-term requirements. I mentioned the fact that you can have a monthly an annual or a 3-year CSP, that you can actually have a monthly CSP agreement as well. So being able to just introduce licenses for a 30-day period, there is like a 15 to 20% premium for that. But all of those retail organizations, maybe those with peak or seasonal trends, or maybe short-term projects, maybe some contractors coming in for a particular period of time, maybe a merger where you want to align, co-term all of your dates. So you've bought multiple organizations and they've got their existing licenses, or you want to kind of get everything co-termed. Often a CSP would work really well, does work really well within that environment, or again, just having that seasonal licensing that you need as well. Multiple domains, being easily able to create and manage new tenants. So if you've got test or dev tenants, if you've got your Hong Kong office that want to be managed or invoiced at least slightly separately, we could just set up separate subscriptions on the same tenant if it needs to be, if you just need to have that some invoice itemization, or to kind of separate out various different project groups. Pricing, we mentioned kind of discounting in this, but to be put as bluntly as possible, CSP can be cheaper. CSP is cheaper than a level A enterprise agreement, and a level A enterprise agreement without any discount, and a CSP agreement without the partner adding on a crazy. That pricing is going to be comparable, and I will say it now that CSP is cheaper than a level A enterprise agreement at the moment. And then I mentioned about the extra value. I would argue you have better, more proactive support with a good sized CSP, a few more value added services as well. look, it is all relative. You might have a really great relationship with your Microsoft account team and be a 5,000 user organization with an enterprise agreement. Then, yeah, you are going to get a good level of support from Microsoft. They are actually pretty proactive in that and do look after their customers. So I'm not about beating them up. You know, the enterprise agreement works fantastically well for many organizations. And actually, I would say, 80% plus of organizations who have an enterprise agreement do also have a CSP agreement on the side, maybe for their test and dev environment, maybe for their different offices, maybe for some contractors, short term, all that type of thing. To be fair to Microsoft, they are making the various billing enrollments. So if you needed a second tenant on your enterprise agreement, they're making that a lot more easier to achieve now. You don't actually need to have separate Microsoft approval. You previously would have had to go to Microsoft Business Desk and said, oh, hey, ABC Limited, we now need a second tenant because of this reason. And you have to kind of go through a process, commit to a minimum of 250. Microsoft are actually kind of removing that, but still the CSP agreement is great for easily, quickly being able to manage and create, manage and assign licenses to a new tenant. And I mentioned before, there are significant changes coming in 2024. And one of the first I want to speak about again, and I mentioned earlier about how Microsoft are kind of ending all CSP legacy contracts. It's all going to be CSP NCE, New Commerce Experience. And I will run through the difference between legacy and NCE, because it is important. And the big change for really is you as an organization is CSP legacy allowed you to do the monthly flexibility, being able to increase and decrease users on a monthly basis completely freely. Microsoft, that was part of legacy. With NCE, Microsoft are still letting organizations and customers do that. But I mentioned before, this is where you get now the 15 to 20% premium to do that. So again, look, you're going to need it for 3-4 months. That's still going to make good commercial sense. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be committing towards the full annual agreement. The other main difference is the cancellation terms. With NCE, it's only possible to cancel orders within 72 hours of assigning that license. So it becomes even more important to make sure you're getting good, strong licensing advice to make sure that, you know, previously the cancellation window was like 30 days. So it's really important that you're getting good, strong licensing advice and good control around who has the ability to request licenses. Ultima's approach here is that actually within our self-service portal, you can't go on there and self-assign a new license. If you've already got a license on there, that's fantastic. You can increase, decrease that as required. But just because of the thousands of potential products that you could end and the smaller cancellation terms, Ultima have taken the proactive step of saying, well, actually, we're not going to allow customers to self-serve a new license in case they do the wrong one. Speak to us first and we'll help assign and triage whether you're buying the correct license for the thing that you want to do. Again, similarly, everything else kind of remains the same. Still no, you know, one license minimum. You can pay monthly, you can pay annually. Kind of product use rights will still work the same. But we are seeing now legacy. Absolutely, you can't create any new legacies, and it's being wound down. And I think the final few contracts we have are coming towards an end in 2024. So if you are still on legacy and have a product on that, you know, great, take advantage. Now, what a lot of organizations did was also take advantage of difficult to how best to approach this. There was a Microsoft price increase, right? There's a Microsoft price increase in March 2023. We also knew about the phasing out of legacy, and so many organizations very smartly, certainly the majority of those with Ultima, secured a price point just before those price increases in March 2023. So now all of these organizations are coming up to renewal over the next couple of months. And if you're not already on NCE, the chances are you're going to have to move on to that. Which kind of brings me to the point around the pricing and the current state of play. And how often do we see Microsoft do price increases? They've said that with an enterprise agreement that it locks it for 3 years, and on a CSP agreement, it would only effectively lock it for 1 year. I've said that actually CSP is cheaper than level A EA, but for how much longer? How often do Microsoft do price increases? And they will call it a variety of different names, whether it's currency harmonization across Europe, or whether it is a increase due to additional functionality within a product. I think one thing is clear is that Microsoft are not going to discount a license. There's not going to be too many kind of flashy type incentives moving forward, and that's true whether you're a enterprise agreement customer or CSP agreement customer. You can't go and negotiate a new price point with Microsoft. What they're going to do is that they are going to, rather than say, hey, buy this product at this cheaper price, they're going to say, hi, buy this product. It has got this much more functionality within there. We can look at the new features being added every day to something like Microsoft 365 E3, whether that's Viva, whether that's elements of the Power Platform. And then the question becomes, well, that's great for the new functionality, but am I actually going to use it? And actually a good partner can help identify the stuff you could potentially be using. But it all boils down to that price point and the fact that Microsoft do, on a kind of relatively speaking, biannual, triannual basis, are putting in Microsoft price increases. If we look back to October, there's a 10% increase. I mentioned the increases in 2023, kind of between 9 to 15%. They've already come out and said, actually, there is going to be another. It doesn't affect the UK market, but be aware there's another price increase coming for Singapore and Norway, and that's in April 2024. And again, they're kind of saying it's to align their global pricing to about 5%, and the UK isn't affected. But they have said, oh well, look, when it comes to September, October time, we are going to be looking at this again. So maybe we can expect another small incremental price increase from Microsoft. Point is, they're going to be addressing their CSP licensing every 6 months. Every 6 months, chances are Microsoft are going to give themselves the option to increase the pricing. I think it's fair to say, to have a caveat, if you're on a CSP agreement and you're looking to budget for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, to bake in a 5% increase annually on CSP. How much longer will it stay cheaper than the EA? We know that they're not going to really be offering discounts. They're going to be loading more and more product in there. But similarly, they're probably going to be reviewing the pricing on an annual basis. So that's going to be really, really key to stay ahead of. And a good partner should be advising you about when these changes are coming. So just like we saw in April 2023, April 2023, with the price increases that are now coming up over the next couple of months, we need to stay ahead. You need to stay ahead of when the other changes are coming, so you know when to lock a price or to buy a license. So when you are looking at a CSP partner, kind of what's happening today in that space, I mentioned and this is obviously ultimate here, we mentioned the support, being able to raise, you need break-fix support, being able to quickly and easily raise their support tickets, track them through, being able to manage users, have that self-service portal to increase and decrease and immediately get those licenses, being able to manage your services, being able to have like a knowledge base where you can check the additional resources that are available. All this is kind of through Ultima's CSP agreement. We always want to get better. We're always looking to improve our service and kind of listen to what customers want. One of the biggest ones out there absolutely is invoicing. And, we're always looking to improve, and we're actually launching we're launching our new CSP service from the 1st of February with new invoice itemization. So you can kind of really break down, and that's across the workspace and hopefully across the Azure as well. So you can really break down those services and understand when those new users have been added, what their unit price is, how that has been prorated, and then it becomes so much easier to manage those users, and that's kind of across the workspace and the Azure space as well. I think it's really important and more important than ever. Sorry, someone's just interrupted me. I get so easily distracted. I'm in the office and people are trying to talk to me through a window. You don't need to know that, but I'm so easily distracted. The thing that we're really advising customers to do, especially as you're coming up to these price increases, is opportunity to do like a health check report. If you're being asked to renew the licenses and costs aren't coming down, they're going up, and Microsoft is saying, you're getting all these new products and we'll continue to get all these new products. Many organizations, and ultimately do this free of charge, is that we're able to show them a health check, to show them actually you've bought these E3 licenses and now they are available to you, but you're only using 46% of them. You've only assigned this many users. Actually, if you look across your user base, we kind of analyze all these key products, whether they're being used, how they're being accessed. People are using Teams. Are they just using instant messaging, or actually are they using the webinar features that they should be, or are they collaborating with users the way that they are? We can look at the Power Platform. We can look at who's using what elements of that Office functionality. A big one for customers is obviously looking at that secure score, kind of like looking at your identity, how people are accessing their data through their devices, through their various different applications. Are there things that you can be doing better? So we see that customers are just demanding more from their CSP partner. You know, they're looking at some pretty big price increases coming up. They know all the new product Microsoft have been adding in. They might even be looking at something like Copilot, but the organization is going to be saying, well, Microsoft licensing is probably your biggest IT recurring costs, and therefore we need to make sure that you are getting the most out of your licenses. To be honest with you, lots of organizations all know their usage. You know, they don't feel the need to do a health check, so they've got a really strong handle on it, but it is an free of charge service that we can kind of run to get those headlines. Are the licenses being used? Are they being assigned? Are they being used in the right way? To feed back to your business that you're doing these types of actions, you're doing this due diligence before any renewal, that you're getting the most out of the licenses, making the most out of the investment that you've made. And more, we're seeing the need to then understand some of these results and what is it telling us? If they're not being used, why aren't they being used? So ultimately, I've launched the Customer Success Management Program. You know, you can have a dedicated customer success manager who absolutely looks at this usage analysis. We kind of think, look, is it an onboarding training issue? Can we help with that? Is it an issue in regards to not knowing what they've got? Is it an issue with support? Is it the fact that it's not compatible? So our customer success managers really want to have that positive experience with you, kind of resolving issues, providing ongoing support, making sure you're using the product that you have bought, and making sure that we've got that strong relationship, and that we're being proactively trying to support you as a partner. It's becoming more and more important, and more organizations are kind of utilizing this. But that's not all. You know, we want to be adding more and more. We mentioned things like the FinOps platform, like Azure optimization that we want to do, and so many new areas. But I don't want this to come across like a sales thing. It's more around where we are today with CSP, what we're seeing customers doing, and really how that supports the future. More and more products are being made available on CSP. And by that, I mean like online subscriptions, like Step Up and add-on licenses. Previously, let's say you had Exchange Online Plan 2, which is great, and you now see the value of Office 365 E3, so you want to add in SharePoint, Teams, OneNote, etc., Office, all of that good stuff. You'd previously have to take that on top of the license that you have, whereas Microsoft want to make that transition, want to make that upgrade more easier. So they are introducing more and more kind of Step Up or add-ons, just to make sure that as you're buying those suites and more products, it's easier for you to do that. You're not basically double paying for anything. So again, I make that point around, not necessarily self-serving your own license, because there might be a better step up for you to do. There might be a better way for you to do that. Being able to, multiple tenants. Yes, multiple tenants is always a thing. Multiple vendors is also something that we potentially see coming to CSP, even outside of Microsoft, having that Azure Marketplace. Azure Marketplace is going to be huge in 2024. Being able to work with kind of non-Microsoft vendors and buy that product and allocate that out. So that's something we're seeing a huge amount of movement in, and working with a lot of organizations, actually working pretty closely with Microsoft around Azure Marketplace. It's really exciting space. The ongoing price increases, like I say, I think it's going to be reviewed every 6 months. That's something that we need to keep a strong eye on. Software subscriptions, talking about online services, but really what we're talking about there is also options to buy your software subscriptions, like 1 year Windows Server licenses, SQL Server licenses, on-premise licenses. You can buy those as a subscription. We'll see things like, I mean, you can today buy Windows Server 2012 extended support now on CSP agreements. You know, CSP is always going to be useful because it provides flexibility and it provides those online subscriptions. What's really interesting is that we have seen Microsoft actually, and I wasn't really expecting this, but they've announced that Office 2024 is going to be released as a perpetual license. There are going to be perpetual license options. We're kind of expecting, like Adobe, right, where everything's subscription based. Microsoft are, you know, of course, it's going to be available 365 first and foremost, 100%, of course, but they are going to release like a standalone Office 2024 perpetual license. I see, and the CSP agreement will allow you to purchase, just kind of outright purchase perpetual licenses as well. So you do have that option within the CSP agreement. I think probably we're going to see more and more 3-year options. At the moment, you can only kind of buy Dynamics 365 as a 3-year subscription. We'll see more and more options come to that within the 3-year option as well. Software assurance is an interesting one, and I do think this is going to be a trend in 2024. And this is an important point, and probably something that's difficult to cover off in just a few sentences, but many organizations have made the commitment, the investment in software assurance, and now they just renew that software assurance. You can't just renew software assurance via the CSP agreement. So I think we will see a decoupling. I think software assurance has the potential to almost, and I am speculating a little here, kind of separating that out into almost like a third type of agreement, like maybe even just like an MPSA agreement or just a software assurance agreement. I think Microsoft, some organizations have benefited from like a from SA discount. And in the future, I think Microsoft might be removing that. Again, that's not confirmed. They were talking about it within the industry last year, and it will go down very badly. That's where you get a 20% plus discount on your online services if you'd previously paid for software assurance. So it's kind of a discount going back almost 10 years. But I think we've had rumors and confirmation that that's something that Microsoft are going to be phasing out over the next 12 months. So many organizations who had previously invested in software assurance are going to reach this point where they go, okay, how am I going to renew this? Am I going to use the CSP agreement? I can't. Am I going to use the EA agreement? I don't want to commit to another 3 years, and it's quite a high price point. So maybe you're going to look at separating out that software assurance entirely. A lot of the discounts that Microsoft previously gave you would potentially be removed in 2024. So I positioned that maybe we can expect software assurance to be introduced to CSP. That is speculation, but I think that's going to be a very interesting arena. I think Microsoft, by releasing Office 2024 as a perpetual license, acknowledge the fact that many organizations who've seen it with extended support for Windows Server 2012, sweating these assets, actually get a lot of value from kind of having some online services, but actually having some capital expenditure and some perpetual licensing. There's value and ongoing value in that. I think it's a very interesting and intriguing space. And the trend is, I think we're going to see organizations split out their online subscriptions and their on-premise, and actually on-premise is still going to be a significant area where every organization is going to have got a lot of licenses in that space. It feels like I've gabbled through a lot of that. I realize that there's going to be a lot of questions. Maybe I've been a little bit all over the place, but just trying to cover it all off. Please contact me and we can talk more about CSP and where it's going in the future and what it means today and how ultimately we can kind of proactively help you assess what's best for you. Copilot updates. So the Copilot updates are, there was a general release on Monday of last week. They said that Microsoft have actually removed the 300 seat minimum license. And you can now just buy one license across all commercial plans. You can kind of buy it on EA or CSP as well, and that is now readily available. So yeah, previously you had to buy 300 licenses. You can now just buy one license on a CSP agreement if you wanted to. You don't have no monthly options. You do have to commit to the full year. You do have to commit to the full year with the CSP license. If you've got an existing CSP and that's coming up in a couple of months' time, actually it was still co-term, so you could still buy a couple of licenses in that regard, which is something that we've definitely seen. There's a change in the qualifying licenses as well. Previously, customers needed to have Microsoft 365 E3. Actually, Microsoft relaxed that a little bit in regards to Office 365 E3 or Office 365 E5, Business Standard and Premium. We're also going to see educational customers, public sector customers being able to purchase it through the CSP agreement as well. £25 per user per month, give or take. Actually, a little bit less than that, but I'll say that as a general one, just to give you guys a price point. Do you have any questions? And please let me know what you want to hear about next month. I've not seen any come in, but please let me know if there are any. I realise now that people were kind of talking to me through the glass because there's another meeting booked in this room. Again, it's information you don't need to know, but now you know that. So I'm going to wrap up this. Everyone's looking at me. I am going to have to wrap this up, and a reminder to make sure I book a room next time. And thank you very much for your time. The slides will be made available. I hope that was useful. And let me know if you want to know any more. But thank you for your time.